Oh howdy all, grab yourself a drink, it is time for some PathOfExile discussion. Today I wanted to showcase a really simple mapping strategy that gets you a lot of XP. Now this strategy as presented in this video and all the gameplay footage is based upon having the 4 Scarab slot map device. This is not something that you start the game with, and in fact the unlock condition for this has changed in 3.24. It used to be from beating one of the Legion endgame encounters, now you get it from beating any tier 17 map. If you're playing in Trade League, then you can simply pay someone else to defeat one of these maps for you. But if you want to do it yourself, you can modify this strategy slightly in order to get by without this. And all you need to do there is simply reduce the number of 75% increased Abyss monsters, Scarabs that you're using from 2 per map down to 1. Doing this will decrease the amount of XP that you get, but perhaps not as much as you're thinking, because these Scarabs stack additively, and they also stack additively with things on your passive tree like Abyssal Army, this Abyss Monsters and Experience node, and these 3 Abysses spawn increased monsters nodes. Plus some of the other things on the Atlas passive tree that spawn increased monsters as well, like Reactive Swarm and the small nodes straight after it. So losing one of those 75% increased Scarabs is a loss, but it's not something that is absolutely game breaking. It's also something that you can scale a lot. So for instance, if your character is very powerful, you can use delirious Scarabs of Delusion and or cartography Scarab of Corruption to pretty easily farm yourself maps that will work even better with this than what we're going to do. But I want to showcase the very basic version of this strategy, and that is using one of the easiest maps possible. This is a tier 16 map that is just magic. That means that it's going to be very easy to run. I want to showcase just the amount of XP that you get here. All we're going to do in the basic version is use 2 Abyss Scarabs of Multitudes, which at the time that I'm recording this video were available in bulk at 1 Chaos each, and 2 of the classic Abyss Scarabs, again available at 1 C each. Now if you want to juice this further, adding Kirak Abyss will make it better, but will also more than double the cost. Anyways, we'll do the basic version here just to showcase what's going to happen. First thing you want to do is have a quick look at the Lantern of Aramil mods. If you've got anything that's really dangerous, which we don't have here, then what you want to do is swap that so that it's something with reduced modifier tier if you've got that, or else just put it on the intrinsically easy monsters. Anyways, we'll just go in at this point, and what we're going to do here is get an enormous amount of XP. We're probably going to get 20% of a level at level 93, and that's without doing the additional juicing that you can do with just a tier 16 magic map. Rare and 8 mods is going to be something like 15-20% more than that, maybe even 25%. So all we're doing is just zipping through, looking for these abysses. When we find them, we're going to run them. Simple as that. We'll do all the looting at the end. I won't do that on this video. Tap the abyss, and you do want to have some pretty solid explosions here. You don't need to have a strong character for this strategy, but you do want to have something that projects damage to a lot of monsters at once. Well, something like a chieftain build that has Hinekora, Explosion Ignites, anything that really just clears out a lot of trash. The key thing here is that each of these abysses is scaling an enormous amount of extra monsters, and that's because the 2 Scarabs we use that are 75% each. Then on top of that, we've also got all the other sources of additional monsters from the tree. Abyss has a lot of those available. One thing you can do if you're running this on dunes, keep track of the number of Imperial Legacy cards you get, and approximately every 8 of those you would expect to get a Fortunate card. This isn't really a loot farming strategy. You will get some loot while you're doing it, but it's not intended to be a loot-oriented strategy. It's all about the XP. And all about being something that's very chill, very easy to do, while you're not really paying all that much attention. As you can see, my life is hardly going down. That's not as a result of any intrinsically powerful defenses on the character. It's just a case of these monsters not being all that dangerous, especially with easy map mods. Now, my Atlas on this character has all of the Abyss support. It also has Breach and Expedition, which I'm not using currently. Like, I will do those events, they will be on the map and I will run them, but they're not the focus of this strategy, they're just a little bit of a bonus. You see that already we've gained 5% of a level, which isn't a huge amount, but is noticeable, and that's only from doing one of these abysses. We are adding an additional 2 with Scarabs. We have 1 natively almost all the time, and so we end up with that being the vast majority of the XP we're going to get. You see here that we've got a Soul Eater. These can be pretty sketchy if you've got rippy mods on the map. This isn't going to be a problem here because we're deliberately doing this with it being easy. That way I don't need to focus while I'm talking about how this is working. But if you are doing this on a 8 mod delirious map like we were talking about before, then you're going to find that those are really, really rippy. Additionally, do not do this in party play, at least unless there's no one in the party that has a really projectile vomit type build. Otherwise you'll just end up with client crashes all around. The number of monsters that are dying here, just there's so much happening on screen that you'll wind up having serious technical issues if you do this in party play. I don't think really even a really strong PC will get around that. So I will do the expedition encounter. Just quickly make sure that it doesn't have anything that severely hurts me, like fire immunity or ignite immunity are terrible mods. This is much sketchier than the Abysses are. Although again, map mods are where the real danger is in PathOfExile now, so if you don't have any scary map mods, then everything's pretty easy. One thing you'll learn is some of the attack patterns of these monsters, these abyssal monsters that have phasing. Sometimes they can be pretty sketchy if you're running with more difficult map mods and if your character's not very strong yet. So just keep an eye on them. They have pretty predictable attack patterns, and it's just a matter of give it a few tries and you'll work out exactly how they work. If you're new to Abyss content. This is the Abyss being drunk. It's running me all around the map. Now there is an Abyss Scarab you can use that is a little bit harder to source in bulk, and that's the one that causes every single Abyss in your map to have a guaranteed Stygian Spire or Abyssal Depths, and also to drop an enormous amount of extra Abyssal Troves. That one is worth trying, and I find that it just adds too much time to the map, because if you loot all those Troves, if you don't loot the Troves it feels bad, if you do loot the Troves it takes a substantial period of time. Whereas with this, we just get the big troves. You will not find that you get much of the League mechanic rewards doing this either. Abyss monsters, they do seem to be able to drop League mechanic rewards, the Oriflamme members and the itemized corpses, but just not very many of them. And so the native monsters are the main source of that. You can do this with pursuing any influence. I'm not really set up for any influence at the moment on my Atlas, so I'm just hitting an Eater of Worlds one. Doesn't really matter. Eater of Worlds just has less impact on my build than the Searing Exarch ones would. You can pursue Maven if you want, but there's not really that much synergy. And then of course you got the map boss if you want to kill them. Okay, so now we can have a quick look to see if there's any more Abysses that we've missed, or if it's just time to go and loot. I think we got every Abyss. All of these pitworms seem to be the rest of the 50 monsters that are left. So it looks like we're pretty much finished, and we're at 78% XP, so we got 17% out of that map. And that's a really large amount compared to what you would get normally. Like, you'd normally get something like 5-6%, especially given that we haven't juiced this anywhere near the maximum that we could. So that's a simple strategy. I'd like to say this is a pretty rookie player friendly approach. It's not something that's difficult at all. You're not fighting hard monsters. You will find that you'll end up making currency out of it. If you wanted to do it with additional Abysses and a more challenging map, then you'll find that it's a bit more difficult, but the rewards will increase commensurate with the added difficulty. Alright, so here's the Atlas tree that we used in this video. You'll notice that there's a lot of specking into Breach and Expedition that aren't important to this strategy. Feel free to strip out all of those points and replace them with something else if you prefer. In fact, you could replace them with Scarab generation if you wanted to go a lot harder on this. You could then spec into generating a lot of Scarabs, and that would work quite well. So we basically come through here, grab some Expedition and Breach stuff down here that's not very important to the strategy. Underground Kingdom cluster is a lot of chance for an Abyss, and because multiple Abysses stack, that's really, really good. We have a little bit of Breach optional, a little bit of Expedition optional, more Breach here. Of the Abyss notables we take, Ancient Conflict is probably the weakest of them, and honestly, I wouldn't fault skipping this particular point, but what you really want is the 3 small nodes here, Abysses in your map spawn 5% increased monsters. Note that this only stacks additively, not multiplicatively, with other sources of increased monsters, and as a result, it's not like it's a 15% more multiplier to the XP you're getting from your Abysses, but it does add up, and these are exceptionally good individual points. Once you're here, and you definitely want these 3 nodes, you may as well take Ancient Conflict for 1 more. And then we come up to the most important breach area and one of the most important expedition. Now we come up to Corrupted Gaze. This doesn't pay off that much unless you use the Abyss Scarab of Edifice, which is not used in the video that you've seen here, but it can be used in place of any of the 4 Scarabs. If you do that, the maps will take a bit longer to do, and you will definitely want to spend more time looting than I did, but the Abyss jewels that you get from it will definitely be worthwhile. Most of them will be trash, but you'll end up leaving each map with 5 to 7 of these corrupted jewels. Now these will drop corrupted and unidentified. That's your signal that these are the ones that can have 5 or 6 mods. We then pick up this other breach cluster here. You can take heavy breach when you're getting started, flash breach once your character is stronger, or you can leave them both unspec'd, it's up to you. Abyssal Army is the single most important thing for this strategy. This is the thing that makes everything tick, and really it's the one thing that's irreplaceable in terms of the Abyss support. Now something that may be of interest to people, you'll notice that we don't take this cluster down here. I do want to pick up this point, this will be my next point that I spend, but the rest of this cluster doesn't really achieve anything for this strategy, and also Votive Horde is just a complete and utter trash node, so that area you don't need to take. After that, the most important other thing is the entire reactive swarm section, and this is phenomenal. This is the one that causes Abysses to spawn so many additional monsters, this in conjunction with Abyssal Army down here. We also pick up Remarkable Relics, which is really good. We also pick up Remarkable Relics, which is something that's universally applicable. Now, if you wanted to optimize this further, I might consider removing all of the expedition support that I built into this tree, and then investing more in Scarab generation, because you do get a lot of Scarabs from this strategy, which is something that you can definitely either use them yourself or sell them in Trade League. In Trade League, there's a lot of demand for Scarabs, but only once you've got bulk of them, so keep that in mind. It's definitely something you can do. That's all I got for this. May your Valobs have interesting results, and I will see you around.